Hey travelers, Mag and I here on day 240 of our trip around the United States. Because of the adventure we had to take yesterday to get into DeLorme page 60 in Utah, we did not keep the lead that we had gained initially coming into Utah. So we are still a few hours ahead, but not by very much. Today's route looks a lot like yesterday's route. We're going to be covering the northeast corner of Arizona for the DeLorme pages up here. Almost all of the pages that we're going to be going after are exempt, and almost all of them only have one virtual or one traditional in them. So we are going to be covering a lot of miles through tribal lands to get to these very interesting locations with a lot of dead space in between them. This area of Arizona is very beautiful, and I'm hoping that as we go through the day and move from one page to the next, we can showcase that beauty to you, because I always love traveling through desert environments like this and seeing the differences you get in the terrain from one spot to the next. Because we are still a little bit ahead of schedule, the anticipation is to push out of Arizona by the end of the day into New Mexico. With a little bit of luck, we'll still get there with some daylight on our side. But there's only one way to find out. So come on, let's go.
We begin our day just south of the Utah state line at the Glen Canyon Dam, a concrete arch-gravity dam located on the Colorado River. This 710-foot high dam was built by the Bureau of Reclamation from 1956 to 1966, forming one of the largest man-made reservoirs in the U.S., Lake Powell, with a capacity of more than 25 million acre-feet. From there, we drop south through the city of Page along Highway 89, hooking up through Bitter Springs on Highway 89A to the historic Navajo Bridge at Marlbe Canyon. The two bridges found at this site, one historic and one relatively new, represent one of only 7 land crossings of the Colorado River for a distance of 750 miles. Completed in January of 1929, the original bridge was the highest steel arch bridge in the world, making travel between Utah and Arizona so much easier. The original bridge served its role for 66 years until the need for a more modern structure arose. In May of 1995, the new bridge was opened to vehicular traffic and the historic Navajo Bridge was used for pedestrians. Not quite yet done spanning the gap, we also dropped into Cameron to visit the original Tanner's Crossing Bridge. This structure enabled the crossing of the Little Colorado River on the Mormon Trail from Utah via Lee Ferry to settlements in Arizona and Mexico. From Tanner's Crossing, it would be a long drive across the desert to reach our next destination in the heart of the Navajo Nation. With nearly 400,000 enrolled tribal members, the Navajo Nation is the largest federally recognized tribe in the United States. And in keeping with its large tribal membership, the Navajo Nation also has the largest reservation in the country. It straddles the Four Corners region, covering more than 27,000 square miles between Arizona, Utah, and New Mexico. In fact, the entirety of the Navajo Nation is slightly larger than the entire state of West Virginia. The Navajo tribe has a rich history that spans back generations and many hundreds of years. In the beginning, they were primarily hunters and gatherers, but later adopted farming techniques from the Pueblo people as well. A lot can be learned about the history of these peoples with a visit to the Navajo National Monument. Located high on the Shanto Plateau, overlooking the Say Canyon system, the Navajo National Monument was established to preserve 3 cliff dwellings of the ancestral Puebloan people. Within the visitor center, you can check out several dioramas of what these cliff dwellings may have looked like, as well as the tools used by these early peoples. But perusing the displays is no supplement for getting out on the trails and hiking through the Navajo National Monument yourself. You can explore the Canyon View Trail or the Aspen Trail leading to the Aspen Forest Overlook, each about a mile round trip. To complete the virtual here though, you will need to take the Sandal Trail, which is about a 1.5 mile round trip along the Batatacan Canyon to the Batatacan Overlook. In the Navajo language, Batatacan stands for the house built on a ledge. The house is built of sandstone, mud, mortar, and wood, and at the time of its abandonment, featured about 120 rooms. Time has taken its toll though. Rock falls inside the alcove has reduced the number of rooms to about 80. An enormous alcove at 452 feet high by 370 feet across, it is hard to believe that people once used to call this place home, if not for all the displays available in the visitor center. It is agreed that in addition to all the living spaces featured within the alcove, there were also a number of structures built at the base of the cliff too. Unfortunately, the additional structures did not fare well against the ravages of time. Exposure to elements eventually led to their destruction by erosion. It is a long but beautiful trail out to reach this site, and all along the way there are different informational markers to teach you not only about the natives who lived here, but the native plants that are residing in the area as well. The terrain continues to become increasingly rugged as you approach the end of the trail, necessitating the need for additional bridges to allow people easy access to the site from the visitor center. The sense of anticipation was almost too much by the time we finally had the Navajo National Monument within sight. Having reached our destination, we made our way back down the trail and then headed into the city of Kayenta. There was not much we needed to do here, but as one of the only places in the entire Navajo Nation featuring a physical geocache, we could not resist adding our names to the log. To say that today was a windy day would be more than a little bit of an understatement. We were constantly battling against the winds, throwing huge clouds of sand in our face, tumbleweeds at the car, and trying to rip the hat from my head. Finally making it over to the far east side of Arizona, we drop into the Canyon de Chelly National Monument. Established on April 1st of 1931, this national monument reflects one of the longest continuously inhabited landscapes of North America, preserving ruins of the indigenous tribes that lived in the area, from the ancestral Pueblos to the Navajo. This site is owned in its entirety by the Navajo Tribal Trust of the Navajo Nation, and is the only unit of the National Park Service that is owned and cooperatively managed in this way. Much like at the Navajo National Monument, you can learn a lot about the peoples that once called this area home with a trip to the visitor center and some of the displays outside. The Navajo people had long called Canyon de Chelly home before it was invaded by forces led by Lieutenant Antonio Narbona in 1805. Later, in 1863, Colonel Kit Carson sent troops through the canyon, killing Navajo, seizing sheep, and destroying homes, orchards, and crops. This was the last straw that led to the surrender of the Navajos and their eventual removal to Bosque Redondo in New Mexico. Canyon de Chelly can be viewed from many points along the North Rim and the South Rim Drive. We stuck to the South Rim Drive today as, at the end of it, it would bring us to the spot we needed to complete the virtual here. From each overlook, ancient ruins and geological structures are visible. Some of these can be accessed from observation areas immediately adjacent to the main drag, but most of which require a short detour down a road to reach a set of rocks where you have to hike out to the end to get a good view of the canyon below you. We did not want to miss a single thing, so we followed each turnoff from the South Rim Drive. The virtual itself brings you to the Spider Rock Overlook, which is touted as being only 200 yards away from parking. Now, while I will gladly attest to this not being a very far hike at all, it is much more than 200 yards. Spider Rock is considered a sacred place and is named for Spider Woman, who is associated with creation stories of the Navajo. It is believed she helped human beings to survive when they first entered this world, including teaching them how to weave. She is also used as a cautionary tale to keep children from misbehaving, telling them that Spider Woman will come down from her rock and take them away. Just a short way south of Canyon de Chelly, we stop into the Hubbell Trading Post National Historic Site. This historic site was thought of as a meeting ground between two cultures where the Navajo and settlers could come together to trade. In 1878, a mere 10 years after the Navajo were allowed to return to the Ganado region from New Mexico, John Lorenzo Hubbell purchased this trading post. He came at the invitation of Navajo peace leader Big Waterman, also known as Ganado Mucho, which means many cattle. The two had first met at Fort Defiance in 1874 when Hubble was working for the U.S. government translating Navajo into English and Spanish. After resolving many conflicts together, the Navajo peace leader invited John, saying, "If you come to the Wash and start trading, you will do good business." To complete our tour of the Navajo Nation, we visit Window Rock on the far east side of Arizona, just a few hundred feet from the New Mexico state line. We had come to visit the Window Rock, which serves as the seat of the government and capital of the Navajo Nation. But while we were here, we discovered a brand new virtual listing which pays homage to the legendary Navajo code talkers of World War II. It was quickly discovered during the war that the Japanese were extremely proficient at breaking military codes. The Navajo were recruited to devise a secret military code using their native language. By the end of the war, more than 400 Navajo Marines served as code talkers. Major Connor of the 5th Marine Division is quoted as saying, "Were it not for the Navajos, the Marines would not have taken Iwo Jima."
All right, and it looks like that is going to do it for our day spent in the northeast corner of Arizona. It was a pretty incredible day. We spent the entirety of our day within the Navajo Nation. And even though these DeLorme pages that we pursued today are exempted from the challenge, we definitely wanted to get out here and see this area for ourselves, and I am glad that we did because we got to see many national monuments, national parks, and memorials as we explored the Navajo Nation. We did still manage to keep a lead, but only by a bit. Now we're gonna go and find a place to bed down once again in Farmington and to get ready to begin exploring New Mexico first thing tomorrow morning. Thank you guys for joining us today on this amazing tour of the Navajo Nation. Like this video, subscribe to stay tuned for daily updates, and we'll see you out on the trails.